The opinions expressed on this program are those of the host and guest and are not necessarily those of WPSL or WSTU. This station does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without the express permission and written consent of this station. Phone lines are open for your questions and comments. Call 220-9788 or 340-1590. And now, here's your host.
And you're in the studio with the Treasure Coast Car Guys, Steve Friend, and we've got Gary back this week, too. Welcome back.
Well, it's good to see you. Gary, welcome back to town, I should say.
To town. Yeah, I was on a whirlwind tour. My daughter, congratulations to her, competed in the Indoor Track and Field Nationals in Johnson City, Tennessee on Saturday, and she's six-time All-American. She finished fifth out of 27 jumpers. So we're real proud of her. She flew back home Sunday, so she's gone.
And that's straight from the proud daddy.
Yeah, yeah. And then
kept texting me all the time during his trip.
And then I was in Boone, North Carolina this weekend, Blowing Rock. My whole family was from there, so I was sending Steve all these pictures about Coffey Street, Coffey Guns and Ammo, Coffey Mercantile, Coffey
the
Furniture.
The whole place is named after you.
The whole Coffey family is from there. It was quite a trip, though. We had a good time.
I was quite surprised because I didn't know if you were kidding or not. When I started to look at the signs and the street signs and the name of the businesses, it was really spelled right, Coffey.
It was. So. And I told Steve, I said, this is my new venture. And he's like, you're a funny guy. So. But it was absolutely lovely there. I love the mountains. It's actually off-season there for them. A lot of the attractions that you go up into Blowing Rock and Boone are closed because it's off-season. There's still snow on top of the mountains, and some of the ski resorts are still open, but everything else is closed. Most of the signs say open April the 7th or something. Like Tweetsie Railroad, the famous attraction there where you get to ride the train up through the mountains, opens April the 7th. So I'm looking forward to going back and doing that again.
Is it kind of like the incline in... where was that?
That's
I don't even
Disney
know.
World?
Okay.
Pittsburgh, they have those incline things
this
that
was,
go up the hills.
I don't know where we were. It's... there was a battle there. There was a Civil War battle there. I don't remember what's...
Is that up in Maryland?
Maybe
near
Chattanooga?
Well, there's a lot of Civil War history there in that area. Of course, that's where all the hillbillies are from. I'm a city-educated hillbilly, so I lost my twang. But it was quite interesting to go there and just revisit that stuff. I haven't been there in so long. We had a really, really good time. It was awesome, and we're definitely going to go back. It's fun.
What's the weather like there?
It was cold. In the bottom of the mountains, it's a little bit warmer, 29 degrees.
No wonder it's closed.
Yeah. 29,
Ice on the rocks. Of course, they've got all these little rivers and switchbacks and trails and driving. I tell you, repair facilities there must do a very good business with brakes because all the mountains and everything that you have to drive up and down. But I absolutely loved it there. Everything that I saw was coffee. So it was pretty crazy.
Do they have those runoffs for like the 18-wheelers
They do.
still? Yeah.
I was talking to
Sharon.
Stuff. We were coming down this great big mountain. Of course, they've got the Appalachian Mountains and Grandfather Mountains, and the Appalachian Trail runs through there, and the Blue Ridge Parkway runs through there and stuff like that. And I was telling Sharon, back when I was a young man growing up, they used to have these called pull-offs. And if a truck's going down the hill and they lose their brakes and stuff like that, they've got this thing cut out of the side of the mountain, and it's filled up with sand. Like 3-4 feet of sand, and the truck runs into that and it slows it down. So there was quite a few of those there.
They still have it.
They still have it.
Well, it's interesting because I guess the big trucks would brake also by the gears.
Yes.
And then it makes me
Yeah, but your load is pushing you too.
Yeah, true. And then what I think about is
77.
all the cars that used to be manual transmissions. So you would wear the brakes out less, significantly less, and now there's very, very few cars that are even built with manual.
Even the big trucks have automatic transmissions in them and stuff today.
The big 18-wheelers.
They have automatic transmissions, but there is a lot of signs in those mountains, and this goes. I haven't been back there in so long. Everything I saw was just like, wow, I remember that. It says before you go up on top of the mountain and you're going down, it says shift into low gear. And then exhaust brakes, and a lot of little towns around there, they have noise ordinances and stuff. So the big trucks that are going up down through those mountains, they go into the little towns, and it tells them big signs, noise ordinance, no exhaust brakes allowed and stuff, because they're pretty loud.
It's interesting. We were exchanging a couple stories this morning about some off-the-path type general stores and stuff like that. So Gary was kind enough to bring me a present back. He brought me a book about Star Trek, the 5 years, what happened to everybody after the original series.
Okay.
So I'll clue everybody in once I read that book this week.
Yeah, I went into so many different places, mercantile stores, general stores, lots of general stores and stuff, and you go in there and you go, oh, I remember that when I was a kid, little bottle caps and the little wax Coke things that you bite the tops off and drink the fluid out of.
Yeah. Okay. Well, can I tell you, you don't need to go up there to find that. Jackson's Ice Cream in Dania Beach.
Okay.
They have all the old candy. And there are also, believe it or not, there are stores that specialize in vintage candy. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you remember or not, but do you remember Turkish taffy?
I don't.
Okay.
That one I don't know.
Turkish taffy.
Swedish fish?
Yes,
I remember
Swedish
those.
fish.
Yes. Okay. So Turkish taffy is it's like a bar, and it's like a regular sized candy bar, and you used to take it and smack it on the floor, on the street or on the sidewalk, and it would break into a bunch of different pieces, and it was
okay. So
taffy.
it would like shatter.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
So and that was the whole thing, and it's really funny because if you YouTube it, it's called Bonomo's Turkish Taffy, and they have a commercial from the early '60s in black and white with kids singing, and it is the funniest thing. You would think that it came from another planet, but they brought that candy back. I actually first found it in the toll booth in Palm Beach, the fill up for the gas.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I pulled in there just to use the men's room. And when I came out, they had a whole little thing about vintage candy, and I saw the Turkish taffy, so I bought a bunch of bars because I remember it as a kid. Mm-hmm. It's really great stuff. So I'll bring you a bar next time.
Okay.
Yeah,
there was some pretty crazy places. We went into this one place, and the guy specialized in hard to find candies, like what you were talking about. And he had racks and racks of Cokes, old style Cokes you couldn't find. The old Dr. Pepper Coke cans had the 10, 2, and 4 on it.
Right.
That's a car theory because you check on your customers at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock.
Okay.
So we call it the Dr. Pepper theory. Yeah, that's what I use anyway. But he had so many old-fashioned pops, Cokes, sodas, whatever they call them up there.
There's a downtown Fort Pierce. There's in the PP Cobb building. There's a store that has that as well. They have all those sodas of every kind from everywhere.
Yeah, it's really neat because when you see stores like that, they also have like these vintage and they're off the path stores that have like vintage toys. So I was telling Gary years ago, I was up in the Poconos with my soon-to-be wife. This is many years ago, and we were driving off the path. We got off the highway. I had to use the bathroom. And we found an old general store, and we went in there, and it was amazing because they had all the types of toys that like we grew up with that when you see online that they're worth a lot of money now. So on the way into the bathroom, when I was walking past, believe it or not, they had these packets of Star Trek trading cards. Okay, it was just like the old baseball cards, with the gum in it, but there was no gum.
No gum.
So I used the bathroom when I came out, and I asked him, like, how many of these do you have? He said, well, let me go in the back and check. So he had a big case of it. And I negotiated with him and bought it, and they sent it down to my house here because they're collector cards, and you can't find them anymore. So sometimes the greatest finds are in some of these places. But leading into things about the car show, because we could talk about this for hours, but I'm sure that up and down, because you drove, it gives you a lot of time really to see cars and trucks and stuff on the highway. And just this weekend, I was sitting at a long light with my wife down south in Palm Beach. And I said, take a look at the traffic flow and look at how you can see all these trucks and sport utilities and very few family sedans. And when you're on the highway and you're driving now, you can actually see the trend that we've been talking about, how the manufacturers have switched from car production over to sport utility, the crossovers, and pickup trucks.
There were a lot of those on the road, as a matter of fact, not just thinking about that. I didn't, back up in the hills and the mountains and stuff, of course there's not, Lexus is very particular about where they put their facilities and stuff like that. I mean, I saw quite a few Lexus cars, but not as many, but did see a lot of SUVs and stuff like that. Of course, in the mountains, they have to be all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicles and things of that nature. But, yeah, you're exactly right. There was a lot of cars and trucks. I rented a Hyundai Sonata. It made me appreciate my Lexus so much.
I mean, usually here in Fort Pierce, if I see a nice Buick sedan, I know it's the snowbird season.
Yeah.
Because off season, it's pickup trucks. You don't see a whole lot of Buicks.
But you see, we see in both of our stores Because if you remember, we talk about this production shift, whereas Lexus is now over 60% producing crossovers, sport utilities. Of course, Lexus doesn't have a pickup truck, but Toyota is the same thing. And you see the Tundras all over the place. You see the Tacoma, which is a great selling truck. The thing about Tacoma that most people don't realize also, it's got the best resale value out of any pickup truck out there. It really holds its value well. You can drive one for 2 years and almost get your money back. So, which is very interesting. And also, speaking of that as well, there's a new crossover coming out that I was looking today where our Toyota dealership is just starting to order these new ones, and it's a smaller SUV than the RAV4. So that is an up-and-coming big niche right now because it's a sub-$25,000 vehicle that, you know, is very affordable considering the average cost of a new car today is $33,000.
Sure.
So it's really interesting how we're watching these trends in the car business.
Well, the SUV, the crossover, is almost like today's station wagon.
You know, pretty much.
You can haul the groceries, you can haul the kids. Well, everybody's comfortable.
Well, what really was the difference, if you go back in time, so we're talking at 1998 was the, I'm sorry, was it 08? Yeah, 1998 was the first year that the Lexus RX came out.
98.
I'm not mistaken, 98.
98, that
and
is
that
correct.
set the bar for all other crossover sport utilities because it was the first crossover that was built on a car chassis. So if you remember years ago, the big fear was sport utilities, well, they roll over, they flip over because they're top heavy or whatever the reasons were.
Yeah, but CJ didn't give us, they gave us that headline that the CJ5s and that Jeeps were rolling over.
So what Lexus did was completely reinvent a whole new market. And as a result of that, they've captured 27% of the luxury sport utility market by building a vehicle that's not based on a truck platform. So it's based on a car platform, but you sit much higher, you have much better visibility, and even though it's wagon-like, if you will, because there are very, very few station wagons that are made now. And it's actually, when you see one on the road, it's kind of funny. Because it's like a throwback, even though it's modern.
Yeah, especially if they're the old big ones. They look like tanks. They're so big.
Right. Well, Veronica was talking about groceries and kids and stuff like that with the Lexus, the RX. It's got a net in the back, and you can open the net up and put your groceries in there, so they're not rolling around in the back. Yeah, well, I use that all the time.
Yeah, down the soup can.
Yeah, exactly.
So while we're on the topic of Lexus, I'd just like our listeners to know that this month is what's called Command Performance. And it's what we call in the industry a push month, meaning that the incentives are absolutely incredible. And if you're looking to buy a car or lease a new Lexus this month, I just want to give an example of some of the things that we have going on. And I'd also like to talk very briefly about two new products, one of which is going to be arriving in a month and a half. So we'll get to that in just a second. But under the Command Performance program right now, it's possible to get an entry-level Lexus. When I say an entry-level, a car that gets 42 miles to the gallon, that will hold 4 passengers, that's got Lexus Luxury, starting at $249 a month for 36 months with just a small down payment.
Wow.
And when I say a small down payment, it's not the fine print $7,000, $8,000, or $10,000. It's $2,599 down, which includes everything, and you can lease a Lexus product for $249 a month plus tax, and that's a 3-year lease, and it's not a low mileage lease. This is 10,000 miles a year, which is pretty much average mileage on cars today. So when you think about it, if you're in the market, $249 a month to drive a Lexus, it's really quite an exceptional deal.
Sure.
Okay. The next model that we have is the IS200T, which was redesigned last year with a turbocharged engine. That car, with a small down payment, is $299 a month for 36 months. Then, if you want a full-size sedan, that would be the ES350, which is probably one of the best all-around vehicles that we sell. It's $329 a month, and that's a 36 month.
Is the hybrid included in that, Steve?
The hybrid runs about $75 a month more,
Does it? Okay.
all things being equal.
Right.
And keep in mind, the interesting thing about the hybrid ES versus this car, you get 270 miles more per tank on a hybrid than you do on the regular ES, on the same size tank. So that's the car that if you do an awful lot of driving and you do a lot of city driving, it makes a lot of sense to take a look at it. because after years of ownership, you'll certainly get your money back, and you'll save a lot of money on gas. And you basically insulating yourself if gas goes up to $3, $4, or $5 a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty interesting, and there are really great deals on those right now. The RC200T, which is a new sport coupe model, which came out in 2015, you can drive that car for $389 a month for 36 months with a small down payment. And here's where it's interesting. So we talked about this car, the NX200 Turbo, which is a four-door, smaller sport utility crossover. And for $309 a month for 36 months with a small down payment, you can drive that car for 3 years or 10,000 miles a year.
That's a good car.
So for $300 a month, now keep in mind, there are not a lot of cars that you can go out there, whether it's a domestic car or a foreign car or a second-tier car. But a domestic car, what can you really get for $300 a month? So here you can actually drive a Lexus, full luxury, and all the benefits, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, that come with buying a Lexus. Now, the staple, which is the RX 350, that car with a small down payment of $29.99 is $409 a month for 36 months. Now, that's a car that's got a window sticker of $44,000. Goes up to $59,000, but it's nicely equipped with all the newest safety technology. So for someone who's on a budget and wants that bigger car and you have a family, it's a phenomenal deal with a little money down out of pocket. And last but not least is the GX460, which is a full-size V8 7-passenger sport utility, which is an amazing vehicle. With a small down payment, it's $469 a month. Now, keep in mind, those GXs are cars that were $700, $800 a month a couple of years ago.
Sure.
So these are phenomenal, phenomenal cars, and all the ones that I mentioned are 36-month leases with 10,000 miles. And then you probably say, for people who are just so used to buying cars and making payments on them, some very interesting statistics that are beginning to pile up now. So the automobile business has been in an amazing mode in the last 6, 7, 8 years. Last year, for 2016, if you remember on one of our shows we discussed, it was the best automobile year for new car sales ever in the history in this country, right around 18 million cars. And we're just pacing slightly off of that, which is amazing because anytime you're in those 17, 18 million, you know, it's extremely
vibrant and last year everybody got a new car. So
then
that's a lot of cars.
But it's a lot of cars. But keep in mind, a lot of people, the way they're buying cars, the buying habits have changed because there's multiple ways to drive a car today. So traditionally, you can come in and buy a car and finance it. And what's happened now, because of the increase in cost of these cars, and we're not just talking about Lexus, we're talking about Toyota, Chevrolet, Ford, Chrysler, every brand, the cars are getting more and more expensive because you have all this new technology and all this new safety equipment. The cost to produce is more. So the average price of a new car today being $33,000, most people will come in, they'll put a small down payment. And conventional financing used to be 48 months. Then, of course, we went to 60 months. Then every once in a while, a couple of years, 3 years ago, we used to do 66-month financing. Well, today, 72 months is just a norm, and 84 months.
Yeah, but you better be buying a car that's going to, you want the car to outlast the amount of payments you need to make.
Well, absolutely.
So you really need to be looking at a Lexus or a Toyota.
Well, yes.
So you can put all the miles you want on it, and it's still a great car when you get your pink slip.
But keep in mind also that it's not just the reliability of the car that you're going to be looking for when you make that decision. What about the resaleability? Okay, so for example, the other day I was working with one of our sales consultants, Howard Kent. He's been with us now 3.5 years from Columbus, Ohio. Great guy. And he was serving clients that were looking at a certified pre-owned car. And the people had it was a 1998 Lexus, and it was a RX, as a matter of fact, and it was in really, really nice shape. The miles were not excessive. It was under 100,000 miles, and you can tell that the people did all the service history. You know, you pull a Carfax report today, and besides looking for accidents or recalls, you can see the service history. So it's a very valuable report for anybody who's looking to buy something pre-owned because you can know if the previous owners took care of that car or not. What I found interesting, because I went out and appraised the car, this car was older and the cars were thousands and thousands of dollars. Where when you look at most 98 model cars with similar mileage, if they're worth $1,000, it's a lot. So there is something to be said about not only the initial cost of ownership, but when you go to trade the car, if you choose to buy it and not lease it, you want to examine what the future value of that car could possibly be. So when you have low lease payments, okay, with a small down payment on a luxury car, it's usually a very good, how should I say, indication of what the cars are going to be worth. Because the lower the payment, the higher the residual value, which means that the factory and the manufacturers believe that the cars are going to hold their value real well.
Well, I have a story for you. A few years back, my dad had a 2000 Toyota Super Cab pickup truck.
That's probably a T100.
No, it's a Tacoma. Yes, Tundra. That's what it is. Okay. Yes. I had it years ago, T100, when they first came out. But I also compared it to a newer with less mileage Chevrolet, and the Toyota was Kelley Blue Book. What I could access online, the Toyota still was valued at more money than the Chevy.
Well, sure. Well, consider this for a minute.
And it was like a 7 years difference between the two cars.
Look, we've had clients come in and say that their 7, 8, or 9-year-old LS460 rides better than the new luxury cars that they test drive. So I definitely can understand that. But the resale ability of the car, okay, is so important today. And even if you lease the car, because there's potential where when you're ready to terminate the lease, you might have equity. So, for example, one of the cars that has a great lease program is this GX460. And people who've leased them previously 2-3 years ago that are getting ready to turn those leases in, sometimes they have $4,000 to $5,000 in equity. So that helps you get into the next lease. So there's a lot to look at. But getting back to the point about the financing, statistics show that the longer you finance the car, the percent of delinquencies in the car loans go up. So, manufacturers in general make leasing extremely attractive, and they try to keep it for very short term. If you remember years ago, Ford patented that name, the red carpet lease. And most of those leases, if you remember, were 24-month leases. Well, there was a reason. Because they figured out with their financing arm that if you shorten the term of the loan, the delinquencies are virtually nil in 24 months.
You have to wonder what the thinking process is there. I mean, if you're making a payment on your car, the closer you are to the end, the closer it's yours.
Okay, but let me ask you this question. Let's say you did the unthinkable, which 20% of the people who finance cars today do, and they finance a car for 84 months. Okay, so you got 7 years of payments, and let's say the average payment, let's say it's $500, because when you extend the term to 84 months, there's a lot of interest.
Right.
So let's say you're financing the car for 7 years, and you're 5 years into the loan, the car doesn't have a warranty, and the transmission blows, and it's $3,000 to repair.
Okay.
What do you do?
Stop paying for it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, let me rephrase that question.
Let them come get it. I guess let them come get it, right?
But you see, unfortunately, that's what happens.
Yeah, I could see that.
So the longer the term. Okay, boy, that was a quick answer.
It was. You must have done that before, Veronica.
No, but seriously, now keep in mind also that cars today, and this goes for every brand, and this is just advocating the great business that Gary and I are in. The level of quality across the board has improved dramatically. So honestly, if you're financing a car for 5, 6, or 7 years, it's a long time. But theoretically, the cars that you're purchasing today new are built so much better than they were many, many years ago. And that's one of the things that had slowed up sales a while back, is because if the cars are running fine and people pay off the cars and keep them and they don't have a car payment for a while and the cars are reliable, why not? Then the flip side of the argument is, well, what about the technology? I mean, these cars today do pretty much everything.
Well, I would think if you're going to keep your car and you have a 6-year payment on a car, in 6 years, what you're looking at new is going to be quite different than what you've been driving.
Here's a good case in point. My sister and her husband, they used to be in the habit of buying cars and driving them until they finally would take it in and get the oil changed, tires rotated, and the filters and stuff changed. And the guy goes, you know what? Doing this work is worth more than what the car is. So my sister called me on the phone. She goes, look, I'm looking for another car. And, and I want to get a Lexus because she was just down and she was in my car and she loved it and stuff like that. But she was concerned about the cost because they're very frugal people. They have really high credit scores, beautiful home. They're trying to retire, kid in college and all that, kind of like everybody. So I said, you know what, go into one of my old Lexus stores up in Baltimore area and talk to this guy here and look at leasing leasing options. And she goes, I've heard horror stories about leasing. I don't ever want to lease a car, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I sent her in there, and they talked to her, and then she leased a car. So then her husband was getting rid of his car. He had the same scenario, oil change, tire rotation. That's worth more than a car is, blah, blah, blah. So he called me up, and he goes, look, I want to go in and I want to get a Lexus car. And I said, go in. So he called me up the other day, and he goes, I got a car. And I'm going, well, did you buy it or did you lease it? And he goes, are you kidding me? I leased it. And I said, well, Frank, why did you do that? And he goes, because it's not worth it for him to buy a car anymore these days because of the same thing that Steve was saying. Because if you drive them for that long, you don't own anything. After you pay the car off, you don't own anything. You've dumped all this money in the car, and then now the car's not worth a dime, and you're stuck. You're just stuck. So leasing is the best way because we lease the majority of our cars. We lease them.
Well, it's interesting because we lease 81%. And it's actually probably a little bit higher now. But here's the thing, when you said, and so many people say this, it's a horror story. Well, there's 4 words that will take the horror story out of any lease: excess, wear, and tear. And what that is it's a small priced policy that gets added to the lease for a couple dollars more per month. And it's basically an insurance policy against damage. So what that means is, let's say you did a 36-month lease, for example, and you did, let's say you had 36,000 miles on the lease to go. Right when you're getting ready to turn the car in, let's say you need tires. Let's say somebody dented and chipped the door. Let's say as you were getting out of the car, you had a pen in your pocket and accidentally punctured the seat. So conventionally speaking, in the old days, you would get a bill, if you do not have this policy, that you would be shocked because it's probably 4 or 5 payments. And because the lease company owns the car and they want to resell it and remarket the car, so they have to put it in very good condition. Well, the excess wear and tear policy allows up to $7,500 worth of damage that you would not anticipate, or additional wear and tear. So what constitutes wear and tear? Let's say, for example, the leather on the seat. Let's say the person's very rough and the way they get in and out of the car, and the seat leather or the cloth is wearing disproportionately for whatever reason, okay? That excess wear and tear policy would take the fear out of everything, because if you didn't have the policy and you were charged for the excess wear and tear, let's say $1,000, this policy prevents you from getting charged up to a certain amount. Now, this is for unintentional excess wear and tear. It's not where you can return the car and it's been sawed in half and it's been in a major collision and you're just going to return it that way, obviously. So I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. But what we're finding now in explaining this policy, more than half the people who lease are purchasing that policy, and it amounts to a few dollars a month, and it completely takes the fear, because you have to make a decision at some time when you're returning the car. Well, if the tires are not within limits, you're going to spend $1,000 in tires, okay? If something is worn or chipped, it's funny, my wife leases an RX, and I brought the car up. We switched cars, and I brought the car up this week for service and get everything checked out, and the lease is up in 5 months. And I'm looking at the tires. And normally we don't have a problem, one set of tires, and we return the car. It's going to be right on the borderline. So I would be at risk having to put tires on the car. And I was really angry with myself, knowing that we might have to spend that extra money, and for the few dollars a month, being in the car business, I figured, I'm not going to need it. But when the next lease comes, we're going to buy the excess wear and tear policy. And it's just a paradigm shift in the way that you have to think about things, how to protect yourself and how to protect the vehicle. So this way, it exculpates you from getting charged, and you don't have any liability once you return the car. So you have to understand that leasing is not like it used to be. Leasing companies are not out to get you. They want that experience to be perfect. when you terminate the lease, they want you to come back and get another lease. The worst thing you could do is have phony charges from a lease company that you have to pay. It leaves a bad taste, and
you lose a customer.
And you lose a customer,
Yeah.
and you don't lose a customer for 3 years. You'll lose a customer for life. So I think it's something that is critical when you lease the car. I would like to see 100% of our clients in both our Lexus and Toyota stores. Now, Toyota leases approximately 40% of the vehicles that they sell. And while we're on the topic of Toyota, just like to acknowledge Amber and the team. Amber promised she'll be here one Tuesday this month, which is good. Catch up with her. But once again, they broke another record with a very, very high percent of attainment. And the store is absolutely on fire. And I will say this. If you are in the market for a Toyota vehicle, there is only one place to go, as far as I'm concerned, not only on the Treasure Coast, but anywhere in Florida. Unequivocally the best deals. They have a 350 car new car inventory. They got 150 used cars, and they're really a force to compete with right now because they are the leading Toyota store as far as percent of attainment. And they've done it month after month after month. So Amber and the team, it's just an unbelievable job. Keep up the great work. Everybody's real proud of you guys.
Great.
So, and also doing it with good customer satisfaction scores, and the people like them. So, it's really good stuff. And there are similar deals right now with the Toyota products. So, there's great stuff if you're in the market right now. It's interesting. We have a mutual client of ours who has bought both Lexuses and Toyotas, and she's gravitating. She's not sure which way she wants to go. And the payments that I got to deliver to her yesterday for a loaded-up XLE Camry with a small down payment in the low 300s was really just pretty amazing. I mean, where can you drive a $30,000 plus car for that?
And that's great payment.
We have a special guest that just walked in.
Where do I sign?
Well, we've been waiting for this moment for a long time.
Here it comes. Here it comes. I had the pleasure of letting Greg use one of our brand new RX 350s this morning, and I guess he's going to rant and rave about that.
Yeah, I don't think I got it over 40.
Yeah.
I was looking all around me just to make sure everybody would stay away. I was a little paranoid after last week, but it's an amazing ride. The technology, as you've been talking about, is off the charts.
Yeah, I spent 15 minutes just showing him how to drive the car.
How do you get in the
How do you
car?
go forward?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why we have dedicated, which you met Diane, dedicated delivery and technology specialists, because even when we hand out now we have 50 loaner cars. They're all brand new models, and we always update the fleet. And what's interesting, when we take those cars out, and then we certify them and we put them up for sale as certified pre-owned cars with amazing warranties. But even when we give loaner cars to customers, okay, and let's say their car is 2 or 3 years old, we have to spend the time to be able to educate them how to work the car. And what's interesting is this morning on the way to work, I was listening on the radio, and they were doing surveys about what people think about the cars and the complexity of the options and the safety features that are meant to save your life. And a lot of people, they said, almost 70% of the people prefer to shut some of the safety technology off. And I was thinking about how could that be where the car almost drives itself and will preclude you from being in an accident. And then it dawned on me that the Lexus brand is the only brand in the United States that has mandatory delivery and technology specialists that make sure that before you leave, you know how to operate that vehicle and that you become a Lexpert.
I think that happens, Steve, and that's a good statistic because I read that
it's
as
not
well.
being informed or educated.
They're not informed and educated. Plus, it scares a lot of people. I was sitting with Greg this morning and showing him all the things that were in the car and the buttons and stuff like that.
Just before or after I passed out?
But let me ask you a question now. So if Gary did not spend the time with you to show you some of the technology, you'd be in that car and you'd be at a complete loss.
Sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. What got me was that when I was getting out of the car up here, was the fact the seat rolls back. So does the steering wheel, and you've got plenty of room to get out of the car.
Yeah. I told him, I said, "What you want to get the car, get the seat to where you're comfortable in it, and just don't touch anything. Now the car will remember that you were in the car, and the seat will go back, and then when you get back in the car and push the start button, it's going to go back to the last position that it was in, so you don't have to touch anything. They also have seat memories as well. If you've got 2 or 3 people that actually drive the car, there's buttons on the side, and I was trying to show Greg that.
Yeah, because you can custom tell.
I think he gave up at that point. But you can push the button L1, L2, L3, and stuff like that, and that customizes it to the driver.
We'll study that, because Carol's going to, obviously her
legs
are much
shorter. Did you tell him that the next time he gets in the car and he goes to push the button, he's going to say, "Welcome, Greg."
Well,
where would you like to be transported to?
After I'd filled his head up and I could see he was like, okay,
he was ready to explode.
I'm done. I said, now, do you want me to get your Bluetooth and pair this? Because now you can get your iPhones and your iHeart and your Lexus Inform and stuff like that. And he's going, nope, I'm done right now. So I said, well, when I get to the radio station, if you have any questions, I'll answer them for you then. But it was quite a different car, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. It really is. And I tried the lane
keep assist.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing.
Now, what's even more funny about that option, that, people say that if they're talking on their cell phone, not texting, because you got to be a lunatic to text in a car, but if you're talking on the phone in the car, and people say, well, you're not distracted, you can drive perfectly. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you are talking on the phone, whether you're holding a phone or whether you're talking through Bluetooth, you are distracted. You do not have 100% attention. Now, to that, driving home on the phone, and I kept going over the line, and I didn't realize it. Now the steering wheel is telling me I'm going over, and you could feel it almost tugging you to go back. And then after a certain amount of doing that multiple times, it's going to tell you to pull over, take a coffee break. You need a rest.
It does.
I hope it never shows you that.
It actually
but it
will
can.
show up. Some of the cars, it'll show up on your instrument cluster where it's got like a cup of coffee and then a little steam coming off of it.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you to pull over. But the car that Greg's driving, in my car, text messaging comes through the audio system on the car, and it pops up on a screen. Like when I was coming here,
it talks to you. It can actually speak the text messages,
and it'll say read or ignore, and then if you push read, it'll read the text message to you, and then it'll have a response on there, like a quick response, and it's set up to where it says I'm driving, I can't talk, or I'll be there in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or I'm running late, or I'm in a meeting, or something along those lines. So it's just pushing buttons, but still, to that point, you are distracted. And somebody that rides a motorcycle around this town, that irritates me more than anything in the world, is to be pulled up next to somebody and they're weaving in and out of the road, and you pull up next to them and they're texting while they're driving down the road. It's ludicrous.
I will tell you, I drive back and forth. It's 150 mile a day commute for me, 75 miles each way. Now, most people say, oh, you're crazy, you're nuts, but let me say this. On the way up in the morning, I leave nice and early, so there's no traffic coming up this way. It's a delightful ride, and it gives me an opportunity to think about the day. So when I'm ready to leave, usually there's no traffic at the time that I leave, and by the 75 miles, it's just a quick hour ride, hour 10 minutes basically, to get home, and by the time you're home, you're relaxed. So, there is something to be said about that, and I also happen to like to drive.
If you drive in your car, though, because you've got one of those luxury cars. Some cars, when I got out of that Hyundai I was driving, I couldn't walk for 3 hours. My back was
Gary.
tore up.
But the technology is amazing. I have something very quick to talk about technology. My son showed me this was really one of the most amazing things. So a few months ago, he was on vacation with his wife, and they were in Japan. And he brought back a bottle of sake. And all of the inscriptions on the bottle, on the label, were all in Japanese. So it was my son's 1-year wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago. And on Sunday, my wife and I were sitting out by the pool. And she says, what type of wine do we have to celebrate tonight? And I'm looking inside and I go, we got the bottle of sake, and, it'd be great for the four of us. So I bring the bottle out, and I'm looking at the bottle, and it's all in Japanese. And I said to Susan, can you take a look at what it says on this bottle, whether this is hot sake or cold? And she takes the bottle, and she's sitting in the pool, and she looks, she says, it's Japanese. How would I know? Well, I told the story to my son when he came over. He takes out his iPhone, true story. There's an app called Google Translator. You got to hear this. This is incredible. He held his phone up to the bottle, and it magnified the Japanese letters and converted it into English. Mm-hmm. And we were able to read the label in English just holding up the phone to the bottle.
My. Yeah.
Well, Facebook will do that, Steve.
Yeah, I've seen people at Disney with that. They'll walk up and they'll order. They don't speak English, and they'll order. They'll talk into their phone and turn it around and play it for the person at the counter.
I just think that's
fascinating. I have a friend that I met through Lexus, as a matter of fact, that lives in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And everything he posts on Facebook is in Spanish or whatever like that. I can't read it, but on the bottom of it says "see translation." You push it, and boom, it pops up.
It converts it
into English. Mm-hmm. So technology is great, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Now, the first question that you had, assuming that I am really a techno geek or non-geek, is do you have a flip phone?
Yeah. I apologize for that, but we actually.
That was a good question.
So if you do, it could end up in the Smithsonian for a lot of money.
I did. we actually have clients that'll come in and they'll go, I bought this brand new car, and
the phone doesn't work.
The phone doesn't work. I can't get this. I can't get that. And I go, well, let me see your phone. And they bring out this phone, and I'm going, man, I haven't seen one of those in 20 years.
It may not talk to that phone, right?
Because I was asking him. I said, do you want me to pair your Bluetooth, your phone, and stuff like that? And he goes, oh, no, don't worry about it. I thought that was a very polite way of telling me, no, I got a flip phone, and you can't do it anyway. So, but well, Carol said, no, he's got a real phone.
Okay, but if you think about it, okay. Nobody ever got addicted to a flip phone.
No.
This is an addiction.
It is.
Well, it's a computer, so actually it's more powerful.
It's pocket. I call it pocket internet.
Yeah, it's
really, it is.
Yeah.
And something, wherever you go, if you're sitting in a nice restaurant, if you look around, everybody's on their phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they should have a jamming device at the restaurant, because I've seen entire families where everyone's on their own personal device and they're sitting at a table together.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
I think it's sad.
They should have
as
mandated
a mom
like
person.
3 or 4 hours a day with no technology.
Here's a good story for you. While I'm sitting in this arena with all of these athletes, these student athletes that are sitting in the stands, they've either finished competing or getting ready to go on the floor to compete and stuff like that. And Sharon's sitting next to me, and I look over, and there's probably 30, 40 kids sitting there waiting to do what they need to do, and every single one of them was on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them. I mean, it was not one person that was not on the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm going, wow, that's crazy.
See, I do that at Disney too. I go, you paid how much to get in here?
Yeah.
And then they're entertaining themselves with their phones.
But, but on the flip side, think about this. Let's say we get an email to the management team at our Lexus store, and it's from Lexus Corporate. There's an additional $1,500 incentive on a car. Okay, it takes me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I have a text package of people that has all the pertinent people in the dealership that would be able to use that knowledge to be able to call. It takes me 30 seconds, and I've communicated with my entire sales staff and all the management and everybody corporately in the store.
15 years ago, how long would that have taken you?
I'd have to probably walk out. I'd have to type up a memo. I'd have to print it. I'd have to photocopy it, and then I'd have to track everybody down or wait till the following day to have everybody in a meeting. Whereas now, everybody has instant access. So there are tremendous advantages to being able to use it, but like everything else in life, I guess it's just moderation.
Well, if I hadn't have had that phone with me when I was in the boondocks, I don't know what I would have done, because I used it for navigation and stuff. There is an old cemetery in Boone, North Carolina, where my family's from. It's called the Coffey Cemetery. And
is there anything
you
that's
even
not
own that too?
Cemetery?
Yes, I'm telling you, everything there was.
You're
coffee.
amazing.
Everything was coffee. Everything
when he
was
says
coffee.
my hometown, he really
Yeah.
means
Really?
it.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, if anybody's ever been to Boone, they know there was Coffee Street. There's coffee, everything. But I was trying to navigate. Sharon was going, well, let's go to the Coffey Cemetery. And I said, you know what? It's really, really hard to find from what I've been told, and I haven't been there in so many years. And so I popped it up on Google, and sure enough, there's Coffey Cemetery, and then it even had a thing where type in the person's name that you're looking for in the plots and stuff. So then I punched it on the Google map phone, and it took me to this place, and I'm talking switchbacks and bad roads and this road, and we get into this development that have all these mountain resort homes, and the homes are absolutely beautiful. And it gets us to the end of this road, and then it says you've met your destination, and the road quit, and then there was a fire road that went down into the woods and everything like that. And then I looked on the phone and it said you have to walk the rest of the way. So Sharon, not knowing anything about, where I'm from and stuff, I said, have you ever seen the movie Deliverance?
Oh,
okay. You don't want to get out of the car and walk down there because you don't know what's down there. And I said, she goes, well, there's a sign down there. And I said, yeah, I bet you that sign says no trespassing. Trespassers will be shot. So, she's city girl. She walks down there. She turns around and said, what's the sign say? And she goes, no trespassing. Trespassers will be shot. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't get a chance to go down there because it was down this little fire trail and back in this, and I just went, you know what? We'll come back later when we've got a gun and some time to deal with all that kind of stuff.
It's interesting with technology. Here's something that's very interesting. So, when you buy a car or you have a car service, and I'll speak now mainly for Lexus, the manufacturer wants to know how they're doing with the product and how the dealership took care of them. Actually, I believe it's more important for us because we fine-tune our game all the time by getting this feedback and responses. So up until, I will say, 4 years ago, everything was done by paper. So we would deliver a car, and it's reported, you put the address in and everything, and then about 30 days later, the client, from either service or from buying a new car, would get a 3 or 4 page survey in the mail that they would fill out. Then, whatever, it would sit around for a week in the house, and then they mail it back a month later or whatever the case might be. So I was involved in redefining the survey system with Lexus several years ago, and they've resculptured the types of questions because a lot of the questions were kind of outdated, and I was very blessed that they asked me to participate in this survey renewal. So what they've done now is that they have a whole new system where everything is done by email. So when you sell the car, you'd be nuts not to put the email in, okay? Because it's not so much that you're looking, you want to have a great survey, but more importantly, it's more of a diagnostic tool for guys like Gary and myself to really make sure that, I know he's interested to make sure that everything is running properly in his department. And for me overall, I look at the whole store and I want to make sure that all the touch points that people see and are going to comment about, that we're doing the right thing by our clients. And if we could be better, I want to see the suggestions, and that's where people will write them. So it's a great diagnostic tool. Now, when we were redesigning this and they said that eventually they're going to go to 100% email, I said, well, that's crazy because the demographics that we're in, most of our clientele base are in their 70s and up. And I said, well, that means that a lot of people are going to be excluded because they're not that capable with the mobile devices and stuff, and they use their desktops and what have you. So it's really, we might not get as many returns as we used to by paper. They pull the switch, they convert it, and everything is done now by email. But it also provides us with statistics. It shows you the method that it was sent out by email, but it also shows you how the client responds, whether it's by mobile, tablet, or PC.
Wow.
Okay? It's really incredible.
That is amazing.
And here's the amazing thing. 80% of the respondents, and we get thousands of surveys over the year, 80% of the respondents of all ages use the mobile phone for responses. Now,
and I bet you those responses come back in faster too.
Instant.
Yeah,
we get it the next day.
I'll
get it the next day. It's all done by computers, so nobody can mess with it or anything. And this is really, there's basically 2 ways to get reviews other than someone coming in and complaining, or someone coming in and saying, you don't hear it very often, but we want you to know it was an amazing experience. So there are reviews, okay, which are online reviews. Now there are multiple sites, but the big one is called Dealer Rater. So for anybody looking to have a car serviced with a car dealership, new car agency, or looking to buy a car, what I recommend is the first thing you do once you decide on one of the cars that you really want, go into your area where you live and research within a 100-mile radius of, let's say, how many Lexus stores there are. Let's say there's 4 Lexus stores, and see who's got the best reviews and read them and understand how each store responds to it and why the reviews are what they are. And you will find that people will make buying decisions at a particular dealership or retail store based on the reviews. Mm-hmm. So it's an extremely important way to siphon out stores that you're not going to feel comfortable with because other people have had bad experiences. Mm-hmm. So if you go online and you see that the majority of the reviews seem honest, and you read them, and you know when someone. It's not possible for our employees to write these kind of reviews. It's really, it's surprising when I read them that people take the time to write such unbelievable things, and they name the salespeople, they name all the different participants. We have a famous receptionist, Suzanne. I mean, people just write in to
She's
say what
awesome.
a great. She's
She is awesome.
I'm telling you,
Yep.
it's just unbelievable how somebody could be so good. It's great, and we're so blessed to have her.
Mm-hmm.
So
I got to tell you one thing this morning. Gary is explaining some things inside the dealership. Now, I've been in the dealership dozens of times, but I have never seen the mechanics area.
Mm-hmm.
You could serve lunch off the floor. It was immaculate. I just couldn't believe it. It was just absolutely amazing.
Well, it's a testimony to the people that work there, the technicians. That's their home. And it's important to them that they work in those kind of conditions. But getting back to what I was talking about with the reviews for a second. So these surveys, okay, we probably get about, let's say about, 75 to 100 surveys a month in both sales and service. Because not everybody always returns the surveys. But it really dials us in to what's going on in the store. Because people, when they're online, they're less shy, and they will tell you exactly what's on their mind. So we love the tool. And, every once in a while, we might not get 100%. And even though we're angry with ourselves, it's an amazing opportunity for us to resculpture the way we would do a particular process, and we react immediately. And Gary is the point guard, obviously, for service and parts. And, we handle the rest, and we talk about this all the time, and we meet all the time about it. And there's no one employee that's less important than any of the others, including myself or the owner, because everybody together is responsible for those scores. And when you walk in, the first thing you see Suzanne, the coffee bar, and it's an amazing thing what people always tell us about. You walk in, and it's so comforting when you walk in there, and you don't feel threatened, you don't feel uncomfortable, and people are smiling. And we think that that's the way it's supposed to be when they come in to buy a car.
Greg got an opportunity this morning to see everybody in action working and stuff. I mean, when guests come into our dealership, like I was expecting him because I got text and stuff about yesterday you were coming this morning and blah blah, so we were ready for you. But when people come into the store that that aren't expecting anything and they see everybody working and doing it's smooth, everything flows, and it's great. Veronica's had that experience with us as well, so now Greg's had that experience, plus Greg's driving a brand new car.
Yeah. It's amazing. It is truly amazing.
Okay, a couple things that I'd just like to share with the listeners. So we have 2 new cars, completely brand new cars that are coming out this year. And beginning in April, we're going to be getting a new car called the LC500, which is a 2-door sports car. That is a performance-oriented car.
Carol.
This car. Okay, you'll be getting the invitation to the party.
Yeah, she's an old Porsche person, so
Okay.
she'd love that.
467 ponies under the hood. Okay.
Now that's Veronica.
Yes. That's what I said.
I like lots of ponies.
Yes. Well, this is going to have a lot of ponies. It also is available in an extremely high-potent hybrid version, so we'll get a little bit, better gas mileage, clean air, clean exhaust,
More ponies.
and it's a
More ponies,
two-seater
less hay.
that it looks like it's doing the speed of light just looking at it.
Wow.
And all of the magazines, the Motor Trends, and all the others have gotten amazing reviews on it. And then towards the end of the year, in November, December, the LS460, the current version, is being replaced by the LS500. It's a completely redesigned car from the ground up. This will set the bar for all luxury vehicles sold in the world.
The cockpit looks like an aircraft.
It's not like anything you've ever seen.
And we're about out of time.
Well, come visit us. It's Treasure Coast Lexus. We're on US 1, just south of Midway Road. And our Treasure Coast Toyota of Stuart, which is south, about 16 miles south of the Lexus store on US 1, right in the heart of Stuart.
And back on Tuesday, you're listening to WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WSTU, Stuart.